Imagine waking up tomorrow to a headline. The government has finally paid off all its debt. No more trillions owed. No more interest payments. A clean slate. It sounds like the ultimate financial victory. But here's the problem. If that headline ever became real, it wouldn't feel like success. It would feel like something broke. Right now, governments around the world owe staggering amounts of money. Trillions stacked on trillions. And every year that number grows. Politicians argue about it. Economists debate it. Headlines warn about it. The assumption is simple. Debt is bad. And one day it should be paid off. That's how it works in your life. You borrow. You repay. You move on. But governments don't play by those rules. Because if you follow the system closely enough, you start to notice something strange. Governments don't actually aim to eliminate their debt. They aim to manage it, sometimes even to grow it. Let's start with what government debt actually is. When a government spends more than it collects in taxes, it runs a deficit. To cover that gap, it borrows. It issues bonds. Investors, banks, pension funds, even other governments buy those bonds. In exchange, they get a promise. Repayment plus interest over time. On the surface, it looks straightforward. A borrower, a lender, contract. But zoom out. Those bonds don't just sit quietly in a drawer. They become assets. Safe ones. Predictable ones. They're used by banks as collateral. Held by pension funds to secure retirements. Stored by central banks as part of the financial system's foundation. Government debt isn't just a liability. It's also someone else's stability. Now imagine the government decides to pay it all off. Every bond, every obligation, sounds responsible. Until you ask a simple question, where does the money come from? To repay debt, the government has only a few options. Raise taxes, cut spending, or create money. Each one sounds manageable, until you scale it. Raising taxes aggressively pulls money out of the economy. Cutting spending removes demand. And creating money at that scale risks destabilizing the currency itself. There's no painless path, only trade-offs. But even if a government could somehow pull it off, something else breaks, because that debt isn't just a burden. It's also a key part of the system. Those bonds sitting in pension funds, gone. The safe assets banks rely on, reduced. The collateral supporting financial markets, shrinks. In trying to eliminate debt, you also eliminate the instruments that hold parts of the system together. It's like removing all the weight from a structure that depends on balance. It doesn't become lighter, it becomes unstable. This is where the logic flips. Government debt isn't treated like a personal loan. It's treated more like infrastructure, something that exists, supports the system, and is constantly maintained rather than eliminated. Instead of paying it off, governments refinance it. Old debt matures. New debt replaces it. Over and over again. A rolling process. Almost like a conveyor belt. Let's make that concrete. A government issues a 10-year bond. 10 years later, that bond matures. Do they scramble to find the cash and wipe it out? Not usually. They issue a new bond. Use that to pay the old one. And the cycle continues. Debt doesn't disappear. It evolves. Now add interest. Every bond comes with a cost. So over time, total debt tends to grow. Not just because governments overspend, but because the system itself compounds. This is where people start to worry, because the numbers get big, almost abstract. Trillions don't feel real, until they do. But here's the part that rarely gets discussed. What matters isn't just the size of the debt. It's the relationship between the debt and the economy supporting it. If the economy grows fast enough, debt can rise and still feel manageable. If growth slows, the same level of debt becomes heavier. Not because the number changed, but because the capacity to support it did. This is why you'll often hear about debt to GDP. It's not just how much is owed. It's how that compares to what the country produces. A growing economy can carry more weight. A stagnant one can't. And this is where the illusion of paying it off becomes even more complicated. Because reducing debt too aggressively can slow the economy, which makes the remaining debt harder to manage. It's a strange loop. Trying to eliminate the burden can increase the pressure. There's also a deeper layer. Who owns the debt? In many cases, it's domestic, citizens,
Institution.
central banks, which means, in a sense, a country often owes money to itself. Not entirely, but partially. So paying off that debt means transferring resources within the same system. It's not as simple as we owe them. Sometimes, they is also us. Now step back. You have a system where debt provides safe assets, supports financial markets, enables government spending, and helps stabilize economic cycles. At the same time, it requires constant refinancing, grows over time, and depends on future economic strength. It's not a bug, it's a design. Which brings us back to that headline. A government has paid off all its debt. For that to happen, something unusual must have occurred. Massive surpluses, aggressive austerity, or extreme money creation. None of those come without consequences. And none of them look like a normal, healthy economy. So governments don't aim for zero. They aim for sustainability, a level of debt that can be carried, rolled, and serviced over time, without breaking confidence. Because confidence is the real currency here. If investors believe the system works, it continues. If that belief cracks, things move quickly. And that's the quiet tension underneath everything. The system depends on debt, but also on trust that the debt will remain manageable. Not eliminated, just controlled. So the next time you hear someone say, "We need to pay off the national debt," it's worth pausing for a second. Because the real question isn't whether it can be paid off. It's what would happen if it actually was, and whether a world without that debt would feel more stable or a lot less